do introductions. I'm Dan Noonan. I'm your current chair of the Budget Advisory Committee.
Gary Gustafson on the committee. Unit 704.
Hi, Stacy Lanius. I'm on the board and I'm also serving as the liaison for this committee. I live at High Point, 587, 589.
I'm Paige Coleman. I'm the general manager at Tamron.
I'm Gary Prisby and I'm running the Zoom meeting.
Margaret, introductions to you.
I am Margaret. I'm up at High Point 550. I am Carla Keys, High Point 581, 582.
I'm Barbara Kynes, High Point 642.
Jim and Tom Radice, 639, 640 at High Point.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name.
Radice.
Thank you.
High Point gets the participation
Yeah.
trophy today.
It's something.
We might ask, you guys are fine in the back row, but if you have comments, we might need you to move up closer to the mic.
I like the kids in the background.
What we'd like to do is we'll kind of go through the agenda. If you have questions, I'm going to ask you to hold them, not because I don't want to hear them, because I think we may answer some of your questions as we progress. But I will definitely allow you time to speak and share any concerns or thoughts you might have. All right, some old business from the past 2 weeks on what we've been doing. We have received some documents and contracts that were provided this week for us to review. Gary and I met with Joe Carey on the financials, and he provided some clarifications on different line items in order for us to understand the cash flow. Sometimes you have to ask questions operationally, what makes up this line item and how does money come in and how does money go out? So Joe was very gracious and met with us and provided us a lot of those answers. Stuart Smith did an in-depth review of the capital replacement plan and shared thoughts with the committee. And now we understand, and there is a new plan that has been posted on the TACO website. So that needs to be reviewed and compared to any questions that we had before, see if they've all been answered or not. So as we have progressed, it seems like 4 elements of the budget advisory committee has come to the top. And number one is we want to ensure that we understand all of the budgets and all the budget line items. And it's helpful for you, in order to do this, to go online to our TACO website and go to the meetings and look at last year's budget meeting where Joe and the board went through it line item by line item, talked about specifics. For those that maybe still have questions, that might be an area to go to and review. Number 2, then, we want to work with Joe and the board to provide feedback on the 24 budget. Joe has provided us a list last year of the draft budget and what that worksheet looked like, which would be an idea of probably what the worksheet is going to look like, except for the number changes for 2024. So we'll be looking at that and hopefully providing feedback where we can as they move forward for the 24 budget review and acceptance. Number 3 then would be also to look at the detail of contracts and that the board has currently signed. And do we have any feedback or thoughts for the board as we look at those contracts from an outside perspective? And if there are, then we will make those concerns or thoughts known to the board for their edification on the contracts. And then lastly, to work on clarity and provide feedback to the capital replacement plan. I think 2 of them are going to float to the top, making sure that the estimates on each year for whatever it might be, whether it be repaving or resurfacing, roofs for the outer clusters, now that the lodge will be done hopefully soon, that they are a good number. And then as we progress year to year, are we adding to it with a cost of living increase? Are we adding to it when we have known product cost, etc.? So that will be our thought process as well, to the board for the future. So with that, we'll kind of move into new business. It'll be talking a little bit about the review of our financial statements, and Gary and I have spoken with Joe about this, but I'd like Gary to give you an overview of what we were looking at.
Well, first off, the income statements, the structure of the statements, the way they've been used in the past, we've kind of questioned with Joe, and he's agreed to probably make some changes. Hadn't been implemented yet, but as of Monday, they were things that he felt like made sense. If you get used to looking at an income statement, first thing you want is you want all the information that's available on it. You want to have a clear shot of income and then a clear shot of all the expenses. In the past, we've had what I would call two statements that basically need to be combined to give us a much clearer view. We've had the income statement for the service and security desk, which according to Joe, he thinks that was basically put together separately to be able to look at that, kind of a snapshot view of it, to see if that was an area that we were actually profitable. And that's the money that we're investing in the front desk and all the associated expenses versus the income that we generate out of it. So the recommendation that we made on that was to integrate the security and front desk statement into our main income statement, which would then give you additional income in the income section of it, and would add all the expenses that are associated with it too. It looks like if you go back and look at last year's budget and then look at year to date, that area is not a profitable area. That's one that we're actually supplementing with money out of reserves or out of our basic income that we have to keep it functioning properly. So anyway, that sounds like a minor deal, but it's actually pretty big. If you're trying to go through an income statement, you're trying to determine all of the expenses and trying to follow the cash flow of those expenses from the time the income comes in till it goes out. First thing you have to have is a blueprint that is accurate. So that's something that we spent a lot of time trying to figure out every line item, figure out where the money's coming, where it's going out, make sure that it reflects both of those accurately. So I think we have a good plan on that now. The other statements that we have, the capital statement and the permanent reserve, the capital statement, the way it's been done in the past, it shows a funding of it to start out with, if you look at the top of it, and then it shows all the capital expenses listed by line item below it that they intend on spending each year for the capital account. We're hoping in the future that we can have just an accurate list of capital expenditures that's up to date in terms of cost to be able to accomplish those. And then the money, again, would either be in a reserve account at that point or coming off our income statement. So we're trying to help kind of clean that up again, where it's easier to read it and to kind of follow the money, so to speak. Permanent reserve is, really nothing to say about that. It is what it is. Each year, we hope to fund it with additional funds. I think by doing our statement a little bit different, we'll be able to actually have a much clearer view of whether or not we can actually fund any of the reserves with our regular operating, or whether it's going to take additional assessments or, an increase in our monthly assessment. So that being said, that's just kind of a short view of what we've been working on. We've put a lot of hours into it. It sounds pretty minor, but it's a lot of detailed work really to kind of follow the money. So unless
Ask the group if they have any questions too.
anybody have any questions about that and the structure that we're trying to implement on it?
The question, I have one question, where you have the front desk, is that a separate income statement or is it ever combined?
The problem is it was a separate income statement. It wasn't combined into our main income statement.
Okay, what you want to do is combine it, you still want to have a separate fund.
They could have one. I mean, pulling up one separately would not be hard at all. I mean, all the accounts are in place right now. literally those accounts can be merged into our main income statement. And anything that you wanted to look at individually to see if it was a profitable, entity, you could do that pretty easily.
Well, it's easy if it's separated, but I understand you want, I want one statement, including everything,
That's what we're pushing for.
and break it out.
Yeah. Yeah, the main thing is if we don't have a single statement that's got everything on it, then you're constantly shuffling between the two, trying to merge them together and trying to figure out where expenses belong. So that was the first thing that, in going over it, we noticed there wasn't any real logical reason why you'd have that pulled out. So we hopefully in the future, and I'm hoping like immediately, we'll have those merged and actually have that information. Anybody else have any thoughts or questions?
Cheryl, Mary Helen, any thoughts?
I do not. I agree that it would be nice to have it combined. If it's on a separate line item, kind of makes sense.
Mary Helen wrote in the chat, it appears that the financials are generated by QuickBooks. The service desk could be added as a department within the operating P&L. And then she also added, it could then be separate together.
And together.
Oh, and together.
This be done as a class, I think, as well.
Alyssa, what programs do you use for our budgets?
She's right, it's QuickBooks.
QuickBooks, okay, thank you.
There is another recommendation that which falls right in line with this that I think we need. If you look at our operating statements, we don't have any type of percentages on it. So if you look at income, versus last year, expenses versus last year, currently on what we have, there are no percentages to give you any type of idea, the trends and where we're going. Again, if you end up having to print 3 or 4 or have 3 or 4 different screens on your computer, trying to look at them, merge them, figure out what's going on, not easy to do.
If it's QuickBooks, you can run you can share an
Right.
initial percentage.
Yeah, I'm just recommending that we do that. I think if we have one sheet that has has a lot more information on it, it'd be a lot more helpful, to
People
be
would
able.
read it. People would read it
Exactly.
and understand it. If it's too much trouble, you're not going to, I'm telling you.
Well, if you just walk in and look at the information we have right now as it exists, you're not gonna be able to tell where we are. In a lot of cases on our income statement, we're actually taking money, out of reserves and showing it as income. And it's not obviously income. It should be designated, totally separate after the income statement is put together. And what I know in my case, I ran small businesses that I owned for 30 years, and have been on boards before. And, it's pretty imperative that we have a true snapshot of where we are. If you look at these, it looks like we're doing great. At the very end, it shows net budget 0. If you go in and pull out the money that's been transferred in, and then take some of the funds that have been moved over from one account to the other, it's not going to reflect that. I can tell you, it's a negative.
Is it moving from the balance sheet then into the income statement? Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, there's if you look at the top of the service security desk, we have, well, the first thing is we have a contribution from general fund, which is actually taking and expensing that on our expenses listed under administrative. We're taking that and putting it in as a plus on our service desk, balance sheet on it, which obviously it's not. I mean, we can't fund from one account to another, that doesn't work. And so we've got some problems, some structural problems with the way things are set up. Easy to solve them all, but we just have to move some accounts around and show it a little bit different than it is currently.
The money's all there and it's not nefarious and going someplace. It's just, it'd be easier for us to assist and give feedback if the budget financials are changed. So we've discussed that with Joe, and Joe will make that recommendation to the board and see where the board would like to go with it. And as Joe explained to us, I mean, over the years, A lot of this is inherited. The board simply wanted items broken down so they could view them as a separate entity. But that can be done, as has been articulated, by just typing in what you're looking for and boom, those numbers come out. So we just found it a little bit confusing to follow.
Main thing we're trying to do is make it easy for anybody that wants to see where we are financially, to be able to pull up one sheet. You can see exactly how we're operating with the income that we have coming in and the expenses that we have budgeted, year to date.
All right, any more thoughts on that recommendation from anybody? Zoom audience as well?
Sounds good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Nope, Zoom audience agrees. Thank you. And just like Gary said, I transfer from one account because I don't like to have money in a single account that has checks out. And I just do it as transfers and don't have it as income so that it doesn't reflect as income when I'm doing the transfers for our company books.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Mary Helen asks, did you speak about the balance sheet at all?
You did, yeah, that's what's gonna get revamped, right?
Well, I really didn't, go into the balance sheet specifically. There are still questions that, I came up with one last night at 9 o'clock, that I couldn't answer. And, I think Alyssa probably knows this answer, but if you look at our, if you look at our income statement under, service and security desk, at the very top, we have 4 line items listed. Each one of them is listed as income. The top one, which is account 406, that's the contribution from the general fund, which that's got to be zeroed out because that's just moving from one account to the other. That's 73,654 that no longer is income. Right below it, we have all administration fees. Now, the way that we understood it from talking to Joe on Monday, we collect at the front desk, we collect $30 per rental night for anybody that's renting a unit. If they come into Tamron and they're getting a key at the front desk and checking in, there's a $30 service charge that $27.25, is that it, goes to the Glacier Club monthly, paid to them monthly for the use of their amenities, which would be the fitness center and the pool and so forth. It's showing as a budgeted amount of $30,000. There's no cash flow out to Glacier Club that I could find. So Alyssa could probably answer that. But as it is, we've got over $100,000 shown as income on the security and service desk that is not income. And that obviously skews that pretty dramatically. I mean, if you look at our projected costs for the service desk, it's $192,000 for the year. That includes the personnel and so forth. So again, we want a clear snapshot of what that is making or losing for us at this point in time. Do you have any comment on that, Alyssa, in terms of where that would show up?
Yeah, the payments to Glacier are in that same account, so we could add that as an expense and keep income, but it's just the way we've done it is just paying it all. It's all in one line.
But right now, there's no expense on it.
And it catches up when we pay Glacier the following month. So it would be clearer if we could have a line down further, or on the operating, whatever you're going to do, to show the expense going out to Glacier and the income coming in on line 460.
Alyssa, can I ask a question? So
Yeah.
basically you're netting it out of that income. So the true amount that stays on the books is what the income is left after you've paid Glacier out.
Correct.
So it's basically a wash. It does show it. It just doesn't show the line items. That's okay. Yeah. You do how I do things.
So that's just basically it's recorded on cash basis.
Yes.
But not on the operating statement though.
Correct.
I guess what we'd like to be able to do is obviously have it on the operating statement. That way we can see exactly what our real cash in is, what the income in. So other than that, on the balance sheet, I think there was a question about that.
Can I ask one more comment about that for Alyssa? Alyssa, on that, do you title it differently so that you can break it out in an Excel sheet if you downloaded it from QuickBooks so that you can see, like I do sales tax back out of handsets, but if I back out the handsets, I'm able to do it because I've got it as a different name of who I'm dispersing the money to, so it ends up netting it all out.
Yeah,
And Mary Helen writes, balance sheet would be nice to group the reserve cash accounts and separate the accounts receivable by special assessment. So it ties to the permanent reserve total memo balance.
Gary, at the end of the meeting, is it possible to get a copy of those questions?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I gotta wait for this to convert.
Yeah,
I can get it.
not right now, but at
Yeah.
some point. Okay.
Concerning the balance sheet, one other question that I asked this morning, which Alyssa answered. Under accounts receivables, we had almost $2 million listed under that. My understanding that it was for assessments for second quarter that haven't hit the books yet. Part of it was for assessments. The other part of it was for the roof project. So again, that money is already spent. So it doesn't go into reserves other than a temporary, stopping ground for it. So, again, not a real good reflection of where the money's going.
Did you want to speak to the estimated bad debt that we talked to Joe about? At 10,000?
Well,
Okay, that's fine.
not really.
Okay. Any other questions on this area? Anybody online, Zoom? Especially if you had your coffee already, Zoom. Anyone else in the audience? All right, thank you, Gary. The next area I'd like to go on is
Excuse me 1 second. Mary Helen asked about cash management. Any thoughts about ACH payments?
I'm not sure. I understand the question.
In what regard, Mary Helen?
For assessments.
We currently do ACH payments. We accept ACH payments, is that what?
yeah, I encourage people to do ACH. It's easier for them. It's easier for, well, I don't know if it's easier for me, it's the same. But that's a nice, an easy way to pay. These checks, old fashioned checks, nobody likes.
Whoa.
Oh, except for Gary, sorry.
Ooh, wait, sorry, I give checks too, sorry. I will start ACHing Alyssa.
You don't, yeah, it's the owner's choice, but,
Mary Helen, the form's online on the website.
Hey, Alyssa. Do you not get your check almost as soon as the email comes out?
exactly. He's got a long trip over.
Steps over and hand her a check.
And I, this little housekeeping here, it's Elisa.
Thank you.
It's also an excuse to come see you guys and visit.
All right, we'll go on to our next item. You have an operating budget that you've been asked to understand. In order for us to provide quality feedback for the next budget cycle and provide input, you have to understand the different categories, line items, etc. Gary and I have spent quite a bit of time since we're neighbors kind of going through it ourselves. Are there any other concerns that you want to speak to now? Or you are going to review the video and then advise? So I just want to kind of open that up to make sure that you feel comfortable. And if you don't, you want to at this point, ask any questions on the operating budget by category or by line item. So I'll kind of walk you through it real quick. Is there any questions under income in the operating statement? Gary, do you have that by any chance, the January through June one that we were provided? Operating statement?
I don't have,
Okay, so it's not, you don't have it on the computer.
I don't believe so.
Okay, it's the one we had on the first meeting. All right, so any question on income?
I might mention, which I think I already mentioned it, but just so everybody's clear about it. The accounts on the service and security desk, which would be the 460, 472, 473. Those three accounts are ones that we want to integrate into the main income statement. So those we hope will show up on the other statement, as quick as we can make the changes or they can make the changes on it. That would increase our income by about $69,100 plus the $2.75 that we get on each of the rentals. That I don't know what the net is on that. So that would give you a clear shot of our income, which will increase the income on our main statement. And then, of course, as we mentioned a minute ago, transferring the expenses over, increases the expenses on it too.
Gary, I think that was it.
Yeah. So,
Great, so that's the revenue source. No, that's asset. No. Revenue sources.
That's
Is that
just
400? No, that's balance sheet. I'm sorry, that's not the one.
that's not the one.
Now we're
It
on
should
the,
say income statement operating.
January through June.
Real quick, I had a question. On the front desk, we're charging $30. $27.50 goes to Glacier. We're collecting $2.50.
I think it's
$2.75.
275.
That's
Per night.
per night.
That is rented, yeah.
Also, anybody participating in the rental program is charged a quarterly fee as well.
The quarterly fees show up in the 472 and 473 columns.
This
On
is
the,
which one?
Yes, thank you very much.
that's a long-term rental. I think they charge, is it $50 per month?
Long-term rental is $50.
So if you rent your place for a year to somebody, you're gonna pay $600 over the course of the year to the HOA. And then if it's a short-term rental, it's $30 per night, of which 27.25 goes to Glacier, and we retain the $2.75.
Well, short-term rentals also have a quarterly fee.
What is it?
It's monthly.
Oh, monthly.
The short-term rentals has a monthly fee of $40.
Okay,
So we're paying year round for that.
So the money the $30, even if the homeowner has a social
Yes,
membership.
Yes.
Or full membership, that's on top of that.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Still have to pay that.
yes.
Sounds like we're not charging enough front desk.
We're not charging enough. What do you mean?
I mean, when you look at it, it's covered the cost of $2.75.
Well, that's been another conversation
I-
that we're having.
Well, and
the-
they don't just serve a rental program.
Oh, you mean,
And the front desk is not intended to be a profitable. This is part of the rental program group. The front desk does a lot of other things as well, for all of ownership.
so,
So when you-
sorry, I misunderstood your question there. I thought you said we're not charging it $30 a night. It's not enough.
But when we're looking at paying Glacier, $27 of the $30.
Right, so,
Seems like. it's
so
hard to
the
recover
problem with
costs.
upping $30 is that we've been doing research
It's a
and
lot, I understand.
And some people would say that is the top of we can't go any higher because people won't rent. So there's conversation with if we can even go higher than that. And like Stacy was saying, the main job of the front desk is to provide service and security. So all of our alarms at Tamaron, all the smoke alarms are wired to the front desk, so they have to monitor that. So if we get a phone call or a smoke alarm goes off in the middle of the night, they monitor that to be sure that the building isn't burned down, to be sure that there's not, for safety and security. It's a
They receive packages. They let people in when they're locked out. They arrange for housekeeping. They keep a schedule of vehicles on the property to support snow removal. So it's not,
they do minor tasks to help us.
it's not a
We
for-profit
are over,
station.
we have a lot of things going on. They,
From the research that's been done, when you start getting up towards 35 and higher, you're getting into 5-star resorts around the world. So you start getting up higher and you're going to start dissuading people from even coming here.
Which would lower profits. Or
so,
I have a question about security. There's a rental unit up on High Point. Is it 2 doors down from you next to you? And it's rented all the time. We've had three times this year. And cleaning have turned on the pipe and the gas fumes have been so bad that if anybody had turned on something else, we would follow on that.
okay,
3 times.
Right.
So what do we do about something like that? It's a rental unit and if they're housekeepers, probably when they're cleaning the stove, they turn it on and don't realize it, but
Right. So that needs to be reported to us immediately so we can go.
well, we have.
To who?
Oh, well, they came up there, they sent maintenance up.
Okay,
And
and
they
they,
check it, and they walk through our unit, and what my concern is, I have a pilot light in my,
Okay.
fireplace. So So does does that that unit that has the gas
Okay.
issue. And then, Taylor, I'm sure you know Taylor, who lives here permanently, he said he has PS, well, post-traumatic stress syndrome, because it's so bad when it happens, that it's just a overwhelming.
Okay.
It's very bad. It's
So-
very-
so I haven't, have you had this issue?
I've heard of it,
Okay.
and I'm trying to remember who the property
Yeah.
manager is of that
that's
particular
what I
unit.
need to be
So-
notified.
Yeah, that's in-
We try to discuss.
So we haven't heard of this, so we would contact the property manager and be sure that they know about it, so their housekeepers don't
We
continue to
had
do
sure
this issue.
to talk to, all we did was call down to every desk and report that we had an issue.
Right.
Before you guys leave, if you wouldn't mind grabbing Paige and get the details back and forth so you can take care of that pretty important matter. No, you're fine. It's
I just
important.
felt like it was very important.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's safety
Needed to
and,
be addressed.
Absolutely. So,
but if you guys could just share that information on the side, it'd be wonderful.
Yeah, just stop down the office after this.
so that,
All right, anybody else on Zoom have any questions on the income side?
I am good, thank you.
All right, Gary, can you go to administrative expenses? Any questions here about where any of these numbers come from? Nothing under chat, Gary, coming up?
I'm sorry?
Anything in chat before I
No,
move?
let's just see, this is something new. What is the process by which assessments are split between operating versus capital?
I don't think there's a process in there.
What did Joe say yesterday? Well, you said sharing the capital is supposed to be something that is over an excess X dollar amount.
is there?
It doesn't happen every year.
Are you just talking about the
That
extra
kind of
money that's not?
No,
put
no,
on
no,
the
she's
category?
saying, I'm trying to understand her question. What is the process by which assessments are split?
Well, I think, I mean, I might just chime in. I'm not sure that.
Which assessments?
Well, the assessments I would assume are the monthly assessments that we have coming in. And I don't think that there's really a formula. I mean, there may be something I don't know about
Ask
because
Alyssa.
I'm new at this here. But I would think that there's basically after you look at what we have expense wise, money left over would be monies that you'd put into, potentially put into reserve account or a separate account at that point in time. I don't think there's any percentage at this point.
There,
If there were a percentage, we would have to be operating at a profit, number one. We wouldn't have the money to be able to put in there. And
Right.
I'd maintain that if you go back and refigure the accounts, which is what we're doing, that we're not operating at a positive cash flow anyway, versus the assessments that are coming in.
so right now, the roof assessment goes into a different account, obviously. And then all of our other, whenever we get HOA assessments, it's like just our normal assessments. Those go into it to just a generic
Right,
account.
Right.
And then we
An
would have
operating account.
an operating account, and those funds stay there, and we pay our bills as we need. We can
Right.
move money around as needed into our capital, but we don't have a percentage to do that because we're trying to operate, so.
Yeah, I might just make another comment. Expenses at this point in time, we've tried to learn the expenses through questioning, through asking Joe and other people that know about them. We have not had the opportunity yet to really go in and scrutinize each expense. What we're going to try to do, and I guess we're the first budget committee that maybe has existed here at this point, or at least in the last few years. So we're kind of starting with a clean sheet of paper. We're really trying to define what we can do to make a difference at this point. And we've identified, as we said, that trying to get it easier to read and a more accurate operating statement would be the first place that we're going to make an impact, which I think we've got all of that put in place. The second part, which ties in to what Dan was saying, we're gonna obviously have a committee that's going to help on the new budget for 2024. We're gonna, at that point, we'll scrutinize all these expenses, start making up recommendations that we come up with to give to the board to, potentially change areas, the way we're spending money. It could be things that are operationally, included in it. Could be a budgeting process at that point. Getting multiple, quotes from vendors, looking at other alternatives. Everything should go under the microscope is my point of view. And I think that all of us, if we can figure out a way of doing things better, whether it's exactly like it's been done in the past or not, that's really what our goal is to come up with that information. So what we've got today is, we've just scratching the surface. We really don't have a whole lot to report at this point, other than some of the things that we think are going to be improvements that we've asked to do. So,
Elisa, just to make sure we're answering a question from Mary Helen online, when a dollar comes in under assessments, 100% of the dollar goes into our operational fund. And once we go through the budget and there is any money left over, that then would be allocated to capital. Is that correct?
Yes, I was gonna explain it in the sense that we choose what the board chooses what capital projects are gonna be done, and then that total is then added to that line 400 on the capital sheet. Gary doesn't have, it's a little lower. The 301,834
right.
budgeted, that's to me, it makes a zero balance for the that income statement.
And then if there is a deficit, the deficit is paid for out of permanent reserves, correct?
Correct, but they if there's a deficit, those, they cut and trim everything that's too much, anything we can't spend.
Right, and if we can't cut and we do need that money that year, it will come out of permanent reserves. We won't
Correct.
operate deficit.
Correct.
All right, what, we're in 500s. Gary, can you go to operations, please? 600. All right, any overall questions or thoughts under 600 operations? Just for everyone's knowledge, the BHP contract labor specifies a lot of information that we just received this week. So we're reading that if there's anything we might be able to help on.
So isn't BHP responsible for that as well, or
They were last year, yes.
so it doesn't show that on there?
That's in addition.
Oh.
That's-
Yeah, so it's the 426
Right.
plus, this was an estimated amount of 85. The number, as you see, year to date is 231.
Yeah, if you look at, this is through June again, and I think there's a July statement that we can get shortly. BHP contract labor was 233, 279 through the first 6 months of the year. Budgeted was 213, so we're about $20,000 over in that category. And then if you look down at snow removal was, for that part of the year was budgeted at $61,000 and looks like 230.911 is what we've spent on it. So I guess through this part, year to date on those two categories, which we spent with BHP would be 464 roughly, 464,000. So I think there's some unknowns that I couldn't answer. The board would have to be the ones to do that. We obviously have a huge cost overrun on snow removal for this year. I don't know if intentions are to not spend money in other categories that we have budgeted to offset that, or if we're going to continue spending, like the original budget was put together and end up with a large deficit at the end of it. That I don't know.
That's realistic, if we get another year of that much snow. I mean, how do you guess? I guess that's my question.
Well, I mean, it's, if I were doing the budget, which I'll be helping, work on it this year, I'd obviously want to have probably about a 5-year snapshot of what we spent in the past. And then, at least do an average and maybe put that into it. Now, the only caveat there is that this is the first year that we've had BHP. So in the past, we've had other vendors that have done it. Now, whether their pricing is, similar or the same or whatever, I have no idea. We don't have that information yet to be able
I
to.
provided information on that. So BHP did get quotes and their pricing was the same as in the community. We had a more than 30-year record high snowfall this year. And if you watch the February board meeting, I think snow removal was discussed ad nauseum. It was like for an hour and a half or something about snow removal. Additionally, the office is working on a snow removal policy this year that's some owners who want repeat visits to their porch during these horrible winters. We're going to provide my understanding is a base service,
Okay.
but then some will be billed to owners beyond that, which is very normal in the area. It's just, we didn't do that last winter. The HOA paid for everything, but we can't have that in these record winters. So the office is coming up with a snow removal policy that the board will review,
It's great.
and that will help control that
Well,
cost.
you're kind of blindsided by this.
But-
And I was gonna,
Yeah.
I understand that at Cascade Village, that the owners were billed twice.
They had two
$100 for
assessments.
Snow removal.
Yeah,
And that's a lot of money, so it
Yeah.
costs a lot of money.
yeah, it surprised everybody. And go ahead, Paige.
I interrupted you. No,
No, that's fine. That's what I wanted.
we
to say.
do get a 5-year average. That's how we come up with this 85,000.
Okay.
We do it by
Um,
average. And
If I remember correctly, Joe did a 10-year average.
so we do an average. This year was a lot of snow. And like Stacy said, we have gone out for quotes. And most of the quotes require a $2,500 retainer just to have their stuff on property each
Monthly.
month. So,
That doesn't go to the cost of your service. It's
Understand.
just an add-on.
Right,
and they come from
it's a
town.
surcharge.
So if we have BHP here on property, I'm just telling you what we found out. So to get that we have BHP here on property, some people from town, they may not even show up, and if they do, they're gonna do one ring around the property, shovel your steps off and call it a day. So the fact that we paid that much, yeah, it's a lot of money, but
That's not my concern. My concern is how do we put
Fund it.
something aside so that we're not blindsided by
Sure.
doing it? That's my only concern. I have no criticism on the amount of whatever it costs, because obviously there was enough snow to warrant that. I mean, you have to function.
sure.
Most removal companies will come through the parking lot once, and there's a car in their way, too bad, so sad, they don't come back till the next day. And they'll shovel once, and so, that's what you got if you're going to get a competitive service. Now, BHP's rates are the same, so we're coming up with a snow removal policy that maybe is not so bare bones, but puts a lot more of the constant removal charge back to that owner.
Kim, I think to answer your question is, you're gonna have to make a decision on what you think you're gonna forecast. You're gonna be the farmer's almanac and say, this is what our winter is gonna be like. You're gonna put a number up there. And if we are lower than that number, goes into our reserves. If we're higher than that number, we're gonna make one or two decisions. We're gonna cut some other line items to make up for it. Or we're gonna expend it and take that money out of reserves. The really, other than finding,
Okay, I guess my question is there a way like they had at the Cascade? I certainly don't want to raise my assessment, but I certainly don't want to go bankrupt as an HOA.
Sure.
So what is that? I just guess what's our fallback? If we have another winter like that, then everybody gets assessed again so that we don't go into the general
Yeah.
reserves.
Those are all.
that would be a board's decision.
Those are-
We have the money in reserve to be able to pay for it.
Okay.
Now, it's the board's decision though, as to how it's used. That's what I was questioning.
Those are.
I don't know at this point in time what direction the board has mandated. If they're gonna try to have a balanced budget and cut other areas, or if they're just gonna show an operating loss on that and that's paid for by reserve, that would be.
And this committee, the purpose of this committee is to give input to the recommendations to consider for 2024. So that's, that snow removal is a great area where
Right.
recommendations can be made, and I'm really anxious to see the policy that's put forth, suggested by the business office. And as far as the forecast, every skier saying, I want another winter like last year, and every owner saying, I don't want another winter like last year.
I hear you.
I might mention one other thing that on the snow removal, we use a third party, do we not, for shoveling?
It's not a third party. We have to bring in hired help. So it's all of
Right.
our people. We just have to hire more folks because we did
Are we
last
getting them
year.
at temporary,
Yeah.
at manpower or
Yeah.
wherever?
When you say we.
Where they're insured.
BHP?
Right.
Okay.
So we had, BHP has to hire more people because last year we did because it was so much so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, for the first year, BHP having to bite off a record season with a lot of new people, which is kind of what I was alluding to. The shoveling, I know I live in Gamble Oak, and I would not have given a passing grade to the shoveling that we got. It was very sporadic. And kind of showed me that the people shoveling were not really concerned about making sure everything was really cleaned off. They were kind of getting a paycheck, so.
Okay,
I think
I'm gonna move us on from this category. Mary Helen, your comment about inflation and cost of hourly employees is absolutely spot on. And I'm sure the board knows that, but we will make that recommendation.
Can we see the whole
What was
comment?
the question?
The other one is a different question.
Okay.
Contract labor / salaries, can we group together?
No.
Well, you have payroll taxes
Exactly.
that are associated with salaries, so
Yeah.
no.
And insurance.
The contract labor with BHP is all under them. We just pay them an hourly fee and they take care of all of the required state and federal withdrawings. So that is a completely separate category from our employees.
And with the inflation over the past years, would suggest to think about weighing near term higher than 5 years ago. She's talking about how we budget for snow removal.
Right, yeah, and I thought I addressed that one, that we agree with her. All right, let's go on to where we at. I guess maintenance operations, Gary.
600. Griff and Gary.
Is this what you want?
Yes, please. Paige, can you remind us what 601 includes? Who is 601?
Sure. So that is, we have right now two, There you go.
Thank you.
Okay.
So that includes, right now we have two maintenance staff that work for Tamaron. And they are night and weekends.
And what does that mean as far as night, as in till 10 to 11, somewhere thereabouts,
10.
till 10 p.m.? And weekends, same way till 10 p.m.? So it's not, nobody during the day roughly, or
There is some
BHP,
during the day.
our staff?
Yes.
That is an area that we're asking to incorporate the front desk expenses, salaries into that. So we'd have a, clearer view of our overall salaries.
Any questions
We're-
online?
Hey, if we're venturing into contracts and personnel salaries, we're getting beyond the scope of the committee.
I think he was just saying, Rick, that that's an area that they want the service desk P and L broken out. So that under personnel expenses, it wouldn't just be the maintenance guys, it would include the service desk after it's broken out the way that they described at the initial part of the meeting. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Gary, last one. Utilities. Any questions here in utilities? I will share with you one that has continually floated to the top under 701. We live at 7,500 feet where we're the high desert. And with a change in our environment and our weather, I've lived here since 75. I've been in the fire service, was in the fire service for 39 years. We never had fires. Ski area closed with over 100 inches of snow every year. Back then, the largest fire in the state of Colorado was on Molas, and that was back in the late 1800s at 25,000 acres. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much our environment has changed since 1975. The next biggest fire happened around 1986 in Durango at 10,000 acres. That was at a lower elevation. So things are changing. I don't know how we support a Kentucky bluegrass environment at this elevation, at the cost of water, at the cost of cutting grass, maintaining grass, etc. So I believe that looking at Xeriscape for our community completely, the whole community wide, is something that has to be on the table.
And I know our landscape committee is, and they had to cut a portion of that out of the budget this year because of the snow removal. And so that's something that I think everybody acknowledges would be really wise to move towards xeriscaping. And so anybody who's really interested in that, I recommend attending the landscape committee meetings because they are talking about that, but
Yeah.
it's the High Point Participation Committee. But it's really hard to pick up that money to move toward it, but it is something that, I think everybody's in agreement
I
there.
think in the long term, it's more sustainable up here.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah, that's what we're saying.
The water bill that we're probably gonna have for July, I think that's probably gonna scare the board a little bit.
Yeah.
because Of that excessive water.
So that's something else that we can talk about is how to
I'd love to see
a
us.
roadmap for that.
It's
And
beautiful.
us, I can speak for this High Point here. We're in Margaret too, we're 100% for that.
Yeah, so maybe we can help. with
I think the
roadmap.
idea is, again, with the budget committee, is to take everything and look at it closely and then come up with ideas. And there would be ideas that you guys come up with that can make a difference. That area, which is, budgeted, I think it was $386,000, something like that, we're paying Glacier. That's obviously an area that we can control. You know, there are a lot of areas that we have no control over. They're fixed expenses. They are what they are. The idea with the budget committee is really to go in and look at every area that we do have control over, figure out if there is a better way of doing it, you know, making modifications, changing contracts, whatever it may be. And that's kind of the goal, is to do that. So,
Well,
you
it
know,
also eliminates the need for, fertilizing.
oh, sure, it's a huge list.
All the
Yeah.
things that go with it, and so it just looks like a win-win from where I sit.
I think everybody agrees on that.
That water they put out this year, there's areas that the sprinklers don't cover.
Right.
So you still don't have the beautiful landscaping that you want. Therefore, I'm totally for zero landscaping. It goes with where we live.
Well, that'll-
That's beautiful.
That'll hopefully be part of the long-term capital plans, you know, when you get to the capital plans and you say, okay, we have to have new roofs, so those are definite expenses.
Yes, yes.
There can be things like the landscaping that could be changed over time. But, you know, we'll have to get numbers on that, figure out what it's gonna cost, and figure out how we're gonna pay for it. And then it goes all the way back to this income statement. You know, can we pay for any of it out of our normal assessments? You know, that's the job really that we've kind of taken on, is to help fine tune it to where we can see if there's money, you know?
I know the hours involved in it. I do appreciate. the work.
Yeah, I mean, it's really not that bad. Once you get past, you know, where you understand the way everything is working, then you can make more recommendations. And what we're hoping to do is to have solid on paper recommendations that, you know, a meeting would be able to pass them out and say, okay, here's what we're thinking.
And
You
your
know, based
viable
on-
choices.
Yeah, exactly, based on that. And I mean, I'm hoping in the future that if we have things like the landscaping and Xeriscape, that could be something put in front of the, you know, the homeowners. You know, send a survey out and say, you know, what's your preference? You know, here's our estimated savings by doing it this way. Here's what it's going to cost long-term to do it. You know, give us input. Because I mean, all we are at this point is a whole group trying to, you know, make the best of it, make the best of our money.
Gary, is there any questions online?
No.
Okay. All right, so we kind of went through the budget with any questions. We'll be working with Joe when he starts to move forward, reviewing the 2024 budget. He provided us with the year-end unaudited draft 22 budget. So we'll be able to look at that for costs last year and how they may change going into 2024. So we will work with him when we can as a committee. The contracts, again, we'll look at those to see if we can provide any input. But that is not to be done today because we just received them this week. The other item that we need to review, we were reviewing the capital replacement plan as the old plan. Now there's a new one up and about on the website. So we need to review that and compare it to the input that Stuart had provided the committee. And soon we'll try to narrow that down. So if there's anything there that we can offer, we'll offer that to the board and see if there is any value. With that, is there any committee members that want to speak to any issue that we may have missed?
I'd like to know which committee members are on property.
Cheryl's.
I'm coming up today. Is it still, by the way, is it still raining? Because we're bringing up a load of stuff to.
It's snowing.
No, you are such a smarty pants. It's not snowing. I heard that it was raining.
Levels of snow today.
It stopped. It's sunny.
Is it? Okay.
It rains some every day, thank goodness.
Well, and that's what I'm looking forward to. We just have boxes we're bringing up, so I didn't know if I needed to wrap them, but we'll be on property tomorrow. So we'll be over there by you, Stacy, because we're going to be over at the unit.
I would wrap boxes if they're exposed.
Yeah,
because
we
it's
did.
really hard to tell.
Yeah, we did that last night. So that's what I was just making sure that we did what we needed to do. And I'll come knock or I'll email you tomorrow so we can meet in person.
That'd be great. And Mary Helen, you're not on property? Okay,
Yeah.
Said no.
No, she's not.
How about Stuart? See,
I'm sorry,
I
Stuart.
got,
Stuart's not here.
he's not here.
He was in Florida. Is Bob the only ad? I just noticed his name.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, audience, this is your time. Anything
Hey,
else?
I would add that some of the stuff, some of the overage with BHP is stuff that they're finding that we thought was done when Tim was here, that we found has not been done. And it's stuff that we have no choice but to fix. So that's a part of the overage too. And that hadn't been brought up.
Thank you.
That's good to know.
It's good. And
They found stuff that have been out there for 18 months.
What type of stuff do they find?
Tickets, I mean, not all paid for by Taco, but some service tickets. I know that I had one that I had told was closed and the work was never done. And
Oh,
there's, it says some of it's
service
it's paid.
request that just
Yeah,
fell in the
but-
cracks.
They had a lot of old work to catch up on.
Those
And-
are mostly paid for by the homeowners, is that correct?
Well,
Not,
those would be, but there was also maintenance stuff that they found.
not all of them. So right now they're in the process. There's a lot of cast iron that needs to be replaced that's not paid for by the owner. That still has to be done. There's a lot of exterior stuff that has to be done that isn't paid for by the owner. So like decks that have to be replaced in High Point, or that's a project right now. Exterior maintenance has to be done that because it's an old property. That has to be done, but it's paid for by Taco and not owner, so it's not being billed back to the owner.
Right.
Yeah, we had rotten wood over our deck, right? We did put a ticket in and it has been done by PHP,
Right.
that it was not done before. Right. Yeah, so we can attest to that's going on.
The painters, whoever, whether BHP hired them or we hired them, have been doing a great job.
Thank you.
They are, yeah.
It
I
does look
agree
really good.
100%, yeah. They're addressing.
Yeah, they're energetic and they're at it all the time,
They
every
are.
time you look at them.
Polite,
Oh,
respectful,
mhm.
and they come when they.
And good at their jobs.
Yes.
So if you have a compliment and a good experience,
Yes.
please send the email.
Please
Paige
share.
has, Yeah.
Yeah.
Paige has confirmed that whenever somebody says BHP did a good job, they pass it on
We
to that
do,
person.
And they need to
So,
hear it.
um,
My
So,
point
yeah.
did learn in kindergarten all the things we were supposed to, We'll be kind to the.
thank
people.
you.
Bobby
Thank
and
you.
Bobby were here at the last landscaping and complimented them.
You
on
did.
every-
Thank
They
you.
did a great job.
So,
All right, anything else from you all?
What about the audit? The audit's done every year.
Yes.
right? And in September, we get a copy and we always pass. Is that correct?
with
We-
flying colors.
Fine, right. So we've done something right. I mean, with the budget and stuff before. To make it pass, because if we didn't pass, then I think we.
That means the numbers are accurate.
They also do some internal control assessment during that, for the audit as well, so.
From what I understand, if you're looking for trends to look to say, are we going in the right direction? The answer is yes. In 2012, I think Joe explained to us, Taco virtually had a zero reserve fund. So today we're in excess, what's our latest number?
It was like 1,000,001 or something.
I'm sorry, it's like 800 and something,
No, I think it was 1,000,001.
1,000,001, roughly 1,000,001 as a fund balance. So we're definitely headed in the right direction. Abate every year, as was just spoke about. Our buildings are getting older and need more maintenance, so it's just gonna happen. That's why the lodge is paying a good chunk of money for roofs, and soon the clusters will be doing the same. So it's just,
One other thing is that we're in a new environment, as we all know. With inflation being at the rate it is right now. I mean, everything that you do costs more money, whether it's groceries or gas or any type of services. So
Even labor.
So that's another area where this, being able to really tighten down on this thing and make sure that everything's done exactly right is going to be really important, because if we leave anything loose, a lot can slip through. And I don't think that, just looking at it and looking at the projects that are coming up, I don't think that we're going to have any extra money to use. I mean, we're going to have to really watch what we do in terms of our expenses.
Well, look at insurance coming up.
Yeah, we have I guess, I'm not announcing anything, but I know our insurance is going to have to change, and that's within the next month, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we should have it finalized within the next month, and that's been sent out to owners that they can expect a 7-time increase. That's what we've been told. Now, that's. We
still
might
don't
come in
have any
under,
numbers though.
might come in under,
Yeah.
but it's gonna be high,
7% or
7 times.
Now,
Seven times.
if you took 7
We've been
times,
told
It's all due to the fire.
it's all due to the insurance industry pulling out of high-risk states for big properties. I've read apartment buildings in Texas, apartments can't get insurance. Texas, California, Florida, and Colorado. And Colorado, it's not just fire. Up in the north, they get tremendous hail damage.
That's Texas.
And so insurance companies are pulling out of these states. I think eventually they're gonna have to have a legislative solution because you can't have a state that's based on tourism not be able to have properties for
Yeah.
tourists.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
It does.
I mean, we're at $135,000 budget for insurance right now.
Mhm.
You know, multiply that times 7, that's 910. So that would be that'd be a huge increase. And obviously our assessments that we currently have coming in with our expenses like they are not gonna pay for that.
They're looking at all the avenues. We can sit here and talk
Yeah.
about how that's gonna occur. But the board is working with brokers. Each broker is working with somebody. We have individual board members that are working with a broker. And all of the issues of deductibles, separate policies, making sure they fully understand what this development is, surrounded by a golf course with the non-combustible roof now soon to be on the lodge, non-combustible or fire resistant roofs currently in the outer lying areas. Everything has a residential sprinkle system in the lodge and in the outlying buildings. We are fully hydronized. We're fully have 1.25 million gallons of water supply. All those variables need to be educated to the people who are underwriting us, that we don't have large hail down here like they do in the Denver area. But then what Stacy said is accurate. Some of them just don't want to do it. They just see a potential. If there's any level of potential and they can't make the money they want to make as an insurance company, they're not going to write it.
They're for profit, so.
Yeah, there you
So those of us who are from Texas and Colorado,
You get the
Not
double
yet.
whammy.
I'm in the
Yeah.
trucking industry, so I know.
He gets hit a lot.
yeah, it's tough. They even said, I read an article about Colorado and it said they're even doing this for big homes. Like if you have a $5 million beautiful vacation home, your company might be dropping you.
Wow.
So.
All right, I'm gonna close down. Thank you all very much for your time and your thoughts and your input. I appreciate it. And as soon as we figure out the next date, we'll advise.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all for
Yeah.
participating.